For this exercise, I'm going to demonstrate how to make a small glass pendant using soft glass. This particular exercise is, I would say it's in the intermediate to advanced category, depending on how complex you want to make this. So the first step is very straightforward. You want to make a gather of glass. I should pause right there. It really depends on what type of patterns you want in your pendant. So before I make my gather, I'm actually going to streak a little bit of color onto it. And this is completely analogous to making the icicle, the glass icicle. So I'm going to make this in a way that is a little bit more on the advanced side of the spectrum, thinking about this, just to make it a little bit more worth your while of watching it. So I'm using, this is basically just a cheese cutter to press the glass streak in there. Now I'm going to, let's go with black. Put a different color on the opposite side. And my intention with this pendant is to demonstrate how you can put a lot of these techniques together and introduce one other technique for glass encasement. So this, again, depending on how complex you want to make this, you could make a very simple colorless pendant, and that would be, something that even a beginner could do. Or you could go a little bit more, like I said, complex, like what I'm about to do. So I have two colors that have been streaked onto the main body of the glass. Those colors are on the outside of the glass. So how do you get them onto the inside? And that's called encasement. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to streak glass onto my working rod, but this time it's going to be colorless. So I basically swipe a little bit of glass over there, and you can see it's deforming because it's very hot and moves easily at this point, so I can use my butter knife to smooth that out. Now I'm going to do the same thing onto the red. And for this demonstration, I am not concerned about the aesthetics of my pendant. I just want to demonstrate the techniques, so I'm not taking any time to try and make this look really good. I didn't quite get as much glass on there as I wanted to in the position, so I'm going to heat this up again, roll this out. And I am going a little bit faster than I normally would for this video to try and save a little bit of time. And when I say I'm making a small pendant, I would estimate that when all is said and done, the body of the pendant is going to be about the size of a dime in diameter, possibly even smaller than that. So obviously the more glass I add, the bigger I can make this. So again, I'm encasing, I am streaking on colorless glass with color underneath. And one of the things to keep in mind is when I shape the glass using the the metal from the cheese cutter, you want to make sure to heat this up again because of how rapidly the glass cools. So I don't want to cause it to crack. In that case, I put a big chunk of glass on there. Honestly, I could have done a better job at that, but it will work out. Now the key is I want to heat this into a gather at this point. So I want to get this really, really hot. And notice again, I'm off center, but that's okay because as I rotate, I'll be able to bring this back onto center. And with the punty in my left hand, I am going to twist in a moment. So in case you were wondering of like, wow, this looks like a terrible disaster, that's actually not a problem because when I heat this up, punty, okay, now I can twist and bring this into a shape that is a little bit nicer. Okay. I'll do that one more time because I wanted to twist it just a little bit more before I broke the punty. And by the way, I could make a hot seal at this point, but I'm intentionally making this as a cold seal. Let me get this a little hotter. Now at this point, I honestly don't know which is going to be the top and which is going to be the bottom of my pendant because I could make the pendant orientated in this direction or in this direction, or I could even punty up onto the side and change the orientation that way. Okay. Because I'm making a pendant, I don't necessarily want my gather to be a perfect sphere. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to remove that punty. I'm going to heat this up, and I'm going to remove some of the glass at the very bottom that's colorless. Again, this is purely aesthetics, so I basically am trying to get a nicer termination point. And at this stage, I'm thinking this will be the bottom. What I'm about to pinch will be the bottom of the pendant. So twist that. There we go. You might say, well, wait a minute. How's that going to work if this is the bottom? I can use this portion of the glass rod to make the hook. But how you do it, it really doesn't matter. There, again, you have all the options in the world. Now, I'm going to heat this up a little bit more, and I'm going to flatten it. However, there's no reason why you couldn't make this into your final pendant. In other words, go ahead and make a hook, a bail, and then you're done. So if you wanted your pendant to basically be kind of like a pine cone shaped, then that's fine. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten it. So I'm going to use these tweezers with the squares on them to squish this glass. So first I want to get it really hot. Basically I'm gathering it again. But I don't want to gather it so much that it becomes too spherical, because I want my pendant to be a little bit elongated. I do need to keep the rotations, because if the pendant isn't uniformly heated, it will distort when I squish it. Alright, so get my tweezers warmed up, come out, and give it a gentle squish. Okay, there we go. At this stage, I'm going to heat the surface of both sides to remove those chill marks, but if I wanted to, I could go back and squeeze this again to make it thinner. If I wanted to, I could elongate it. So for example, if you use your imagination, this is starting to look a little bit more like a leaf. So if I wanted to, I could punty to the bottom, pull it, and elongate it as a leaf. And if I wanted to add veins, I could actually touch the surface with either like a butter knife or this cheese knife or a pair of pliers and put some texture into it. And one thing I will show you how to do is if you do want like a little bit of texture, like for example, like some bumps on here. So I've got another glass rod. I'm going to come to the side and just touch a little bit of glass, pull it off, and then melt it in. And then I'll do the same to the other side. Right now these balls are not the same size. Put one there. Put one there. Put one there. I think you get the idea. And yes, I could put them on the face if I wanted to. Again, how decorative we're getting with this is beyond me. There we go. So just to make the point, I put a few drops of glass, so balls of glass on the front. So now, well, because I just added glass to this surface, I need to make sure everything is welded, everything is fused in here. I could take my butter knife at this point and press on the glass to ensure that it's fused, but doing so would distort the pattern and I would have to reheat it. So now what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to use heat to melt those glass balls in. If one of them pops off, it's not the end of the world. The biggest one, this one right here, the first one I put on here, it's like the most likely candidate to have problems, so I'm giving it a lot more heat. If you look carefully, you can see how it is now welded into the body. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a hook. If I wanted to, I could make a hook here, and then I can remove on my left. But to demonstrate making a cold seal, use this as an example of making a cold seal, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm heating up the rod in my right and keeping the pendant hot. I touch them together, give it a moment. Okay, there we go. Got a little off center on me in my transition, but that's okay. So now, the rod on my left is a cold seal. By the way, if you notice how I've changed my hand position, the left is over, the right is under. You don't have to do that. You can do whatever you want as far as your relative hand position, but for me, it actually just feels more comfortable, so I actually did that without thinking. So I'm heating up, I would say, about 1/2 inch of the colorless glass on my right. I want to get it nice and hot, and just to check, I'm actually pushing a little bit, essentially making a little mini gather. And there's several ways to make a bail, to make a hook. So I'm actually pulling back a little bit, and then I'm going to come forward to finish it. In this case, I want to try and get this centered as best I can. So pull this back, and then go from there. Now this is a graphite rod. Basically, it's the type that is used for pencils, basically more of the like artistic pencils. And I bought the rod itself, put it into a holder, and I can use it as a graphite reamer. If you notice, my shepherd took a little off center, so I can heat that up and then bring it back in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my punty. By the way, if it's become a hot seal at this point, I'll have to burn it off, but hopefully I'm warming up my tweezers. Yeah, so that happens, and it's not the end of the world. So my cold seal essentially became a hot seal when I fused these together. So to fix that, all I need to do is just melt it off. It's nicer when it comes off when you tap it, but it does happen. And notice how I just picked off a little bit of glass. So now at this point, I fire polished the bottom. And so you can see there's my pendant. So the pendant is about the size of a dime, as I was expecting. A little smaller, but it's also kind of thick. Again, nothing to write home about, but it is a nice demonstration to do for the students, and it is something that many of them, after a few practice pieces, should be able to make this.